Do you ever wonder how other companies plan and execute the customer experience programs?
The way that we approach the customer experience is we try to use a comprehensive framework to try to move beyond just the voice of customer measurement. That's really just the starting point.
Let's explore how other companies work to make their customers the driving force of their business strategy on this episode of the CX Leader Podcast.
The CX Leader Podcast with Steve Walker is produced by Walker, a business consulting firm that helps our clients unlock the potential of their customer experiences by placing the customer at the heart of all their business decisions. You can find out more at walkerinfo.com. A production note about this episode. One of our guests experienced technical problems during the interview and had to join us again by phone. You may notice a change in the audio quality later in the episode.
Hello, I'm Steve Walker, Chairman and CEO of Walker Information and also host of the CX Leader Podcast, and thank you for tuning in and listening today. The CX Leader Podcast is where we explore the topics that are of importance to leaders like you who focus on the customer experience and help you leverage all the benefits of your customer experience and help your customers and prospects want to do more business with you. We really appreciate your continued listenership. We endeavor to bring you great guests and great case studies and the topics that are really important for you to keep driving your business in the direction of being customer focused. Tell me, if you've ever been in this situation, you're in a strategy meeting with several of your colleagues discussing something to do with the CX program. Inevitably, someone asks the question, well, what does XYZ company do to improve, and how could we learn from their journey on the customer experience? Well, I think we've been there too. So we decided here at the CX Leader Podcast that we're going to invite some of our clients onto the podcast and let them tell you how they plan and execute their CX programs. For this first episode of the series, we've invited two executives from Johnson Controls, and they've joined us via Skype. This is a marvel and a master of technology. We have Matt Inman, who is the Global Director of Customer Experience, located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And we also have Matt Sharp, a Senior Manager of Market Intelligence. And Matt Sharp is in Boca Raton, Florida today. And my excellent producer and podcast partner, Chris Higgins, and I are sitting in Indianapolis, Indiana. So, gentlemen, it is a pleasure and an honor to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for having us.
Why don't either one? I won't have any trouble messing up the name today. I'll just say Matt, and I'll be right either way. But would one of you guys just briefly give us a little overview of what Johnson Controls is so that our listeners can have some context about our subject today?
Sure. This is Matt Sharp, the other Matt. And JCI, Johnson Controls, is the world leader in building solutions, products, and services. Our company is basically broken down into three different domains here in North America. We have our HVAC business, our fire protection business, and our security business. And not too long ago, back in September of 2016, Tyco and JCI merged. So now we truly are the global leader in all three domains.
So if our listeners are sitting in an office building or working in an office building, there's a good chance that the controls, the fire safety, the HVAC, and all the electronics that go in and around that is if not a Johnson Controls product, a Tyco product, right?
That's correct.
Pretty high market share. That's right. It's a good chance that you're one of our customers.
Yeah. Well, I think, everybody probably knows the name Johnson Controls because it's such a famous name, and obviously people know Tyco too, but it's always fun to see how these products work. So talk a little bit about your customer base. I mean, just how many customers are there? What's the global footprint? Give us a little bit of background on sort of the scope and scale of the business from the perspective of your customer base.
So JCI at a global level is about a $30 billion company. We have, I would say, I don't know what the latest customer count was, but I would say over 1 million different customers and 120 employees worldwide. Truly a global company. And we have a fairly large footprint here in North America. And my responsibility, I'm more familiar with the United States and Canada, but we have LATAM, we have the UK, we have regions all over the world. I would say we serve customers from mid-size, anyone from 10,000 square feet to a large stadium or hotel or hospital, or our vertical reach is healthcare, higher ed, commercial, industrial, oil and gas. It's quite a portfolio of customers.
Yeah, so anywhere where people are gathering, either to work or play or shop or anything, that's a good chance that that's a potential customer for Johnson Controls.
That's right.
And obviously, you got to deliver a great part of that service right at the physical location too, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Many multiple sites. Many of our customers are what we call multi-site customers. So there may be one central decision maker, but they have hundreds, if not thousands, of sites worldwide.
We'll talk a little bit about the history of the customer experience function at JCI and how this came to be. Where does the customer strategy fit into the overall view of the business at Johnson Controls?
So Johnson Controls, the way that it's formed right now is a series of mergers and acquisitions and new brands and products that have launched over the years. So with that comes a lot of growth, but also a lot of challenges as it relates to managing the customer experience. The result of that is that you have a lot of brands that have a lot of independent operations and that have grown up building out what they expect to be their ideal customer experience from within. But then as we've grown as an organization, and in particular the merger that we had with Tyco a couple of years ago, there's been more and more of a focus on how do we start getting our arms around being able to organize that customer experience so that it has a little bit more alignment. Part of the strategy we had with our merger was to be able to have more of a broader or more comprehensive value proposition for our customers so that instead of just purchasing one line of business from us, we had the ability to sell a whole solution of different services that they would need within the building space. So to kind of the different domains that Matt talked about, could be anywhere from the HVAC, the control systems that go along with that. So in order to be able to do that, we needed to be able to put more alignment around the experience that our customers were going to receive so that they didn't feel like when they were working with Johnson Controls that they were working with so many different brands and different experiences that they had to deal with. So the growth of a lot of this, and in particular where we're at right now with the growth of the customer experience program, is really taking all of the good that's been done within each one of the individual brands and trying to bring that under a singular umbrella so that we can have some alignment in the way that we approach our programs, but then also identify kind of the best in class or the best practices from each one of those brands and apply them consistently across all the different touch points that the customer might have with Johnson Controls, regardless of the brand, product, or service that they might be dealing with.
Matt Sharp, you have anything to add to that?
As I mentioned earlier, I'm responsible for North America, but Matt Inman has global responsibilities. So it's nice to see that, Matt has insight into what my peers and colleagues are doing in different countries, things that we may not be taking advantage of here in North America. So Matt's able to share those insights, and I can adopt them here if it fits well with my program.
I find it interesting that this program has been consistent across not just your big mega merger that occurred with Tyco, but many smaller acquisitions and mergers over the years. Do you feel like this focus on the customer has been helpful in terms of integrating a lot of different cultures and a lot of different acquisitions?
So I think it has been. So I'm relatively new to the organization. I got here about a year and a half ago. And coming in, being the lead over, center of excellence, which basically means, you're there to help advise and lay out planning and lay the roadmap out for the organization. But the individual business units still have the responsibility for the execution and they hold the budget within. I was anticipating running into a little bit more resistance. And I was really surprised at how well the organization was really willing to kind of center around this and look for the guidance and how we could align with everything. Part of that really kind of came with a lot of new faces coming into their roles. So there wasn't a lot of legacy with people being in the same position for 10 years saying, hey, this is the way that we do it. So I think that was really helpful for part of the openness to being able to align with a lot of this. But the other thing that was probably most helpful, and I've been really impressed here so far, that it's not only a very visible part of the way that we talk about it from a senior leadership perspective, but it also is followed up with a lot of accountability. And evidence of that is shown up that on a monthly basis when they're going through a lot of the financial performance of the organization and the sales performance, in that same conversation is how are we performing with our customer experience, Do we know what's driving that? And it's really looked at as being kind of an integrated piece into the health of the organization, which will connect back to the financial performance of the organization. So I would say to kind of break it down, openness from the regions and the product lines has been impressive. But on top of that, and as in any organization, it's really the top down. If it's a priority there, it becomes a priority elsewhere. And I've seen very good not only verbal support of it, but also follow up with the actions of the importance of the customer in the strategies that we're taking out as an organization.
Yeah, it sounds like there's amazing alignment for the size of organization you are. Again, Matt Inman, maybe we ought to back up just a little bit, and since you have the global responsibilities, maybe you could talk just broad strokes about sort of the overall design of your customer experience program, and sort of from your standpoint at the corporate level and on a global level, how is the thing organized and structured relative to the strategy and the structure of the overall business?
Yeah. So the way that we approach the customer experience is we try to use a comprehensive framework. And when I say that, what I mean is to try to move beyond just the voice of customer measurement. That's really just the starting point, an important step, but really just the first step that we need to take. So as we look at the framework for this, we're trying to look at it and say, okay, in addition to measuring and getting the feedback, are we able to establish what that financial linkage is? And for me, that's one of the most critical things to do, because it really helps establish and solidify the cultural support around this. By being able to make that linkage between the customer feedback and the financial returns as an organization, we're able to get greater support and people really buying in and starting to see, hey, the reason we're focused on customer experience is because this has a really critical impact on the financial results of the organization. So that's the financial linkage piece of it. But in order for us to be able to get there, then we also have to have a lot of other things in place. Some of that is related to the culture. Does everybody understand what their role is within delivering this? Is it connected back to their performance evaluations and performance reviews? Do we have a good communication strategy in place so that everyone in the organization has clean line of sight from what our customers are telling us and how we're performing on that? And then ultimately is when we're getting the feedback, do we have a real consistent framework in place to make sure that we're taking action based on what our customers are telling us? And do we have good follow through on what that looks like? So the way that we structure it then as an organization is we put all that together into a roadmap, and we lay that out for the coming 2 to 3 years for us to identify, what are and this is always in there, what are the IT resources we need to be able to put into place? What are the human resources we need to be able to put into place? And what are some of the financial investments we need to make in order for us to be able to run the program with success? From there, then we work with each one of the regions or each one of the product lines, as it may be, to identify how does this get embedded within that region. And with any global organization, there's going to be nuances with the different products that we have in place. But then ultimately, trying to identify where that fine line between global alignment with everything is, and where you need to also be able to have some of that country level or region level, customization for the way that the program gets rolled out for them.
All right, so Matt Sharp, why don't you share with our listeners a little bit more specific about how you use the information and design the surveys here in the North American market?
Sure. Well, we basically run 2 different types of surveys here in North America. We have our monthly transactional surveys, which are basically install and post-service touch points. Anytime one of our techs goes in and installs, a chiller or a security camera, for example, or service, if we're going in there and providing some preventative maintenance, we contact our customers. We contact them through the phone, and we see how we did, and if there's any areas of improvement, essentially. It's a good survey. It's relatively brief. It's about 10 questions or so, and it's got some qualitative opportunities for qualitative feedback and quantitative metrics that we can report on. What's great about these transactional surveys is that they're done in real time. So we have something called hot sheets, which generate an email that goes directly to the local manager responsible for that area, that customer, and they can find out if there's any issues with that customer whatsoever. So if it turns out we were late to an appointment, or if a customer is waiting on a part or something like that, then that local manager is made aware of it as soon as possible, so they can track it and make sure that the issue is resolved. And all these transactional surveys are done at the site level. So we're calling folks that are familiar with our work, that were there on the day of the service event or install, and they can speak to how we performed. The other type of survey we run is our annual customer relationship survey. And these we target more of our strategic customers across all three domains, and we're targeting decision makers and major influencers. These are the people that essentially make a decision each year to keep JCI or to go for RFP. So we have a similar program with a hot sheet. So if an executive from one of our customers gives us a poor score or requires assistance, then that local national account manager or key account manager is notified as soon as possible to go follow up with the customer. But beyond that, more of a strategic planning is that all this feedback is entered into Salesforce.com, and we develop action plans on that. And we hold our account managers responsible for following through with these action plans on a timely basis, discussing the survey with the customers, reviewing their feedback, and then making sure that there's plans in place to improve the experience.
That's a very comprehensive approach, and I think our listeners will really learn from that. We're fortunate to be talking with Matt Sharp and Matt Inman, a couple of CX executives at Johnson Controls. Matt Sharp, before we got on the air today, you shared with me a couple of specific implementations or initiatives that you undertook to improve the customer experience based on your program and based on the feedback. I wondered if you would be willing to share that with our audience.
Sure. There's two that come to mind. The first one is what we call remote service solutions. So based on all the feedback we collected from our customers, all different types of customers, there was a need to reduce system downtime. Not surprising, right? We don't want customers don't want their alarm systems being down for more than a day or so, right? That's imperative.
Yeah.
And to shorten service response time. So whereas customers would wait maybe 48 hours or more to have a service tech scheduled, they needed something sooner. That's not surprising. So based on all that feedback, we developed a set of specialized phone agents called the Remote Service Solutions Team. What they are, it's a unique team of specially trained service agents that resolve technical issues remotely. So they can anything from low tech, that they're going to call their customer on the phone and walk them through it, to remotely logging into their system and taking care of their access control system right then and there. So that significantly reduces downtime and increases our service time. The next is the creation of a universal agent. So more feedback we received from our customers was they were essentially looking for a one-call resolution. You mentioned before, Johnson Controls is a large company. We have a phone tree, and unfortunately, some customers get transferred from one agent to the next, to essentially going from department to department to resolve their issues. Customers obviously would prefer a one-call resolution. So to improve that, we created a universal agent team in our monitoring centers in Denver and Kansas City. Essentially, it's a cross-trained team of phone agents to handle all common customer requests. So we looked at all the feedback we're getting from customers, the pain points, and found out that there's probably only a handful of issues causing 80% of the grief. What we did was we took these universal agents, right? We took the best of the best from every department, cross-trained them, and now when you call our call center and have an issue, there's a better chance that you'll be able to speak with one agent and have all your most common issues resolved in one shot.
Man, that's a couple of great examples of how you take feedback from the customers and actually go make some meaningful change for the customers that they recognize. And I think it's one thing to sort of dream up the process of the concept, but it's another thing to get the organization actually moving in that direction. Matt Inman, you talked a little bit about some of the culture change earlier. Could you just share a little more about how the folks at Johnson Controls deal with change management as it relates to impacting the customer's experience?
Yeah, so because the organization is going through so much change, the customer experience and trying to retool the way that we're approaching it and create more aligned standards for ourselves globally has really just been one of those changes that everybody's looking at, saying, yeah, this is who the new Johnson Controls is, and this is the way that we do things. So in a lot of respects, you'd always feel like, oh, how do you get the voice of the customer to be able to fit in when there's so much change going on in the organization? It really, and somewhat ironically from my perspective, really worked out well to our advantage, that as we're going through all these changes, there's so much of establishing what the new norm is. Putting customer experience as a part of that establishment of the new norms has really fit in very, very nicely, and has not had to have been forced or trying to gain somebody's attention that would have otherwise been focused elsewhere.
And did you mention anything about your Make the Moment approach?
I'll let Matt talk about that a little bit more, because
okay.
That's something that's targeted specifically out of North America. But I still think one of our better examples of being able to act on the customer feedback beyond just at the individual account level of feedback, but looking at something that, I guess, culturally affects the organization on a broader basis.
Yeah, take it from there, Matt Sharp.
Yeah, so in North America, we're really proud of our program called Make the Moment, and it's essentially a company-wide think customer first mindset here in North America. And what the program does is it rewards employees for outstanding customer service, and it encourages the sharing broadly the customer experience scores and customer comments throughout the organization. So it's not just executives that see our NPS scores or customer verbatims and things like that. I mean, employees of all levels of the company can see that information. And it really encourages all levels of employees to go above and beyond for our customers. And there's opportunities to receive public recognition and opportunities to earn prizes for going above and beyond. And you can nominate your peers and colleagues for a job well done. Things like that. And that really stems from strong support from our executive team. I'll give a shout out to Tony McGraw, our VP of Central Operations. I mean, he's really supported this program from the beginning, and it really does make sure that it spreads out to all levels of the company.
Matt and Matt, I'm really grateful for you guys sharing your story with us today. Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you wanted to make sure that we got into the program?
The only thing that I'll offer up, because I've listened to a lot of these webcasts and podcasts and stuff like that before, is that being a leader, when you listen in on these things and you're taking notes on what other organizations are doing, my takeaway is always is, oh my gosh, everybody else has got everything, so figured out, and everything is so clean with their data and stuff like that, and we're really struggling. And even though we talked about the successes that we have and the plans that we have together, it is by no means all that rosy. We have a ton of challenges as well, with clean data and systems talking to each other, and constantly figuring out, the what's next and how do we deal with changes and things like that as well. So just wanted to share that. I think for more than anything else, just to let everybody know that the successes we have come with their share of challenges, just like any organization has as well. But the success stories really come with, how do you get past those challenges, whether it be systems-oriented, resource-oriented, or cultural-oriented.
Matt Sharp, any parting thought?
No, I would just say to develop a program as strong as ours, it just takes strong executive sponsorship. So I think any company looking to build a solid CX program needs to find some executive sponsorship. That's important.
Matt Inman is the Global Director for Customer Experience at Johnson Controls, and Matt Sharp is a Senior Manager of Market Intelligence at Johnson Controls. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the program and sharing your success story.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Appreciate being here.
Yeah, we look forward. Hopefully we'll have you back on again sometime. And are you guys out on LinkedIn if people want to try to connect with you?
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Matt Sharp.
Excellent. Well, if you want to connect with these guys, I highly encourage it. And if you want to talk about any of the other topics we discuss, either on this episode or other episodes of the CX Leader podcast, feel free to reach out to me at steve.walker@walkerinformation.com or call me here in the U.S. at 1-317-843-8890. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you more, or reach out to any of my colleagues. Don't forget to subscribe to the CX Leader podcast. You can go to walkerinfo.com/podcasts, and you'll find our links to iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and on our own YouTube channel as well at youtube.com/walkerinformation. Thank you for listening to the CX Leader podcast, which is a production of Walker. We're a business consulting firm that can help you make customer experience your biggest competitive advantage. Find out more at walkerinformation.com. Thank you, and see you next time.